The stone is cold under your feet. The cannon fire comes through it low, steady, patient. It belongs to a force that has already won and is waiting for you to understand. 80,000 of you inside these walls. Sounds like safety. Turns out it isn't. You've counted the rice stores. Rationing orders change 3 times in 2 weeks. Each time, discipline, never desperation. 100,000 Tokugawa soldiers outside. 6 days, no movement. They're not attacking, they're waiting. That's worse. You don't know why you're crying yet. That part comes later. The smoke from the eastern hills is calm, patient. It belongs to people who already know how this ends. Your hands don't shake when you tighten your helmet cord. That surprises you. In 3 days this castle is gone. In 3 days the last heir of the man who unified Japan is dead. You chose this side. Would you make the same choice? Again? You don't know yet, but you will. Here's the part they don't show you to understand how you got here. We need to go back 20 years, to when you still believed the strongest man in Japan was also the most honorable. You grew up hearing Toyotomi Hideyoshi's name like a prayer. Your father said it with relief. The wars were over. A peasant's son had become ruler of Japan. That story meant everything. It meant one life could change the world. You believed it completely. Hideyoshi died in 1598. His son Hideyori was 5 years old. 5. Already the center of a promise that would outlast everything. The Council of Five swore an oath 5 of the most powerful lords in Japan. Protect him. Govern justly. Keep the Toyotomi name alive. Tokugawa Ieyasu signed that oath, in front of witnesses, in the name of a dying man's child. Your father said there was nothing to fear. The oaths were made. You believed him. Not great. The oaths lasted 2 years. By 1600, Ieyasu had moved forces without permission, arranged marriages in violation of the council. When the lords resisted Sekigahara, one morning, a century of balance ended before noon. Hideyori was 7, moved deeper into Osaka Castle. The country his father bled to build quietly handed over. You were serving a lord who survived Sekigahara on the losing side. Lands stripped, warriors scattered, a sword without a master. You watched the Tokugawa dismantle the old world, carefully, methodically, without anger, which was worse than anger would have been. You kept the rage somewhere quiet, told yourself patience wasn't the same as surrender. It's a thing you tell yourself when you're not sure. For 10 years, every displaced lord, every scattered warrior, every man who remembered the promise becoming history, quietly, without ceremony. And still you kept the question alive, who still remembers what was promised? The summons came autumn 1614. Hideyori 21 now calling for the displaced, the dishonored, the dispossessed, not promising victory, asking a question. You didn't go because you thought you could win. The math was clear before you started. You went because some things can't be left unanswered. What Ieyasu did too. A 5-year-old child and called politics that was one of them. You crossed through Osaka's gates on a cold November morning, carried everything you owned. When the doors closed behind you, something settled in your chest that hadn't been quiet in 14 years. That certainty didn't make what was coming easier. It just made it legible. Ieyasu arrived with a force so large the encampment stretched to every horizon. Organized, disciplined, enormous. You expected chaos. You found a machine. This is where most people would reconsider. You didn't. The castle held, and the man who held it was named Sanada Yukimura. You watched Sanada build his enclosure south of the castle earthworks, timber, a fortification so clever it absorbed 3 Tokugawa assaults and sent them back broken. A man exiled, imprisoned, stripped of rank, fighting with the precision of someone who spent years preparing for exactly this. And you know it, the castle held through. Winter. Then came the ceasefire, an agreement. For 11 days you let yourself believe it might end without the worst. Then the Tokugawa engineers arrived to fill the outer moat. The treaty language was deliberately ambiguous. Your negotiators signed under pressure, and the people who wrote the trap were walking into position to close it. When the inner moat was gone, Osaka wasn't a fortress anymore. It was a building, large, beautiful, indefensible. That's it, that's the whole thing. They didn't storm the walls, they just removed the teeth. The summer campaign began May 1615. No holding the outer lines. You fell back through positions you'd spent months building, each retreat controlled, each one narrowing the world you had left. The cannon fire had changed since winter. Heavier, more accurate. Dutch and English traders had decided which side of history they preferred. You learned to read incoming fire like weather pitch, silence before impact, the resonance that meant the wall to your left was about to change shape. Every step back was a calculation. How? Much ground for how much time? The answer kept shrinking. And then, Sanada. In the final days, Sanada Yukimura led a charge directly into the Tokugawa center. Not because it could succeed, because it was the only move left with any honor in it. His red armored unit drove straight into Ieyasu's personal command, close enough that the old shogun reportedly retreated in panic. Let that land, that charge did nothing strategically. It accomplished everything else. The men who survived it walked differently for the rest of their lives. They were there when someone chose meaning over survival and meant it completely. Would you have led that charge? You've asked yourself every year since. You've never found a clean answer. You were wounded in the final hours, not badly enough to leave you sitting against a stone wall when the fires started in the keep. The smoke from the upper floors, the black of lacquered wood and paper records, 100 years of documents, Hideyoshi's whole legacy, 20 minutes, the sound of the interior collapse moved. Through the stone like a second heartbeat, stuttering, then stopping. Toyotomi Hideyori was 23 years old. He died inside those walls, the last direct line of Hideyoshi's blood gone in that fire, and then, silence. The soldiers who came through the gates afterward were orderly. That's what you remember. Not cruelty, procedure. The Tokugawa weren't angry. Anger would mean they still saw you as a threat. What they had was administrative efficiency. The processing of a conclusion already written. You sat against your wall while men walked past with ledgers. The country you grew up in had ended in the smoke. This new world was already moving. You survived. That's the part that surprised you. You'd made peace with the other outcome. Survival arrived like a problem you hadn't prepared to solve. It never gets easier. You just get better at pretending. Same roads, same mountains, same sky. And walking through them something no one could see. The question of what to do with a life that was supposed to end more cleanly. Japan wouldn't see another major internal conflict for 250 years. The peace that followed was real, long, good for millions of people. What Ieyasu built at Osaka through a broken promise and an ended bloodline was the architecture of 2.5 centuries. You already know how complicated that is. They say Sanada's final charge became a story in every province within the year. Not because the Tokugawa recorded it, because the men who saw it couldn't stop talking. You've told it too, in places where it was safe. Watching faces try to understand what it felt like to choose the losing side. Most can't imagine it. They ask if you regret it. That question surprises you with how little it applies. You're very old now. The world Ieyasu built has decades of permanence, the kind that makes the thing it replaced feel like a dream you're not sure you actually had. History calls Osaka the end of the samurai age. The last moment men of the old order fought for something other than the Tokugawa future. That's not wrong, it's incomplete. What ended at Osaka wasn't a military tradition. It was a belief that an oath sworn before witnesses, in the name of a dying man's child, had to mean something permanent. That belief lost. The peace that replaced it was real and long and good for millions. You hold both things. You have two. The question you carry isn't whether you chose correctly. You made your peace with that in the smoke and the silence. The question is simpler, more durable, when a promise is broken by the most powerful man keeping. Faith costs everything. The child dies anyway. What is the purpose of the choice? You chose the inside of those walls. Osaka burned. The peace held. You are still here. And you've never found an answer that satisfies only the knowledge that the question still burning in you may be the only honest monument left to the people who didn't come out.